All right, well, welcome everybody. This is our annual Southern Vermont CEDS and Regional Priority Project List webinar, how to submit your project and why. And today our goal is to just quickly walk you through the submission process and introduce you to the people who will be answering your questions if you have questions. And so we have on the call today, Jonathan Cooper from Bennington County Regional Commission. And then on our side, we have Owen Perry, myself, Meg Staloff, and Rachel Shields Ebersole. And this webinar is part of the Southern Vermont Economy Project. We are a program of BDCC that operates across all of Southern Vermont. We have support from the USDA, Rural Community Development Initiative. And we do these webinars to basically give you resources that you need to do the work that you're doing and help you build your capacity. If you do have questions as we go along, you can feel free to put those in the chat, and Rachel's going to monitor that until she gets to the part where she's going to talk. So without further ado, I'm just going to move to the next slide and just talk about, so basically there are two project pathways, but they're submitted through one single form, which we have done just to streamline things and bring these processes together. So I think of this as a funnel. At the top of the funnel are the CEDS projects, and those are projects that show alignment with the region's economic development strategy, and they're open to projects at all project stages as long as there is clear ownership for that project, right? So it can't be someone else should do this. It should be, we are doing this, but it can be at an early stage. Narrowing the funnel slightly is the regional priority project list. Those are collected, instead of being across Southern Vermont, those are collected individually by our regional development corporations. So that would be BDCC in the Windham region and BCRC in the rest of Bennington County. And so those are projects that will be, generally speaking, projects that will be prioritized by the state and some federal programs for funding. They should be projects that are further along in their planning process, so sort of shovel ready and putting together funding stacks. And so therefore, those are going to require more detailed planning information. So any project that is submitted is going to be included in the CEDS projects, and then only those that opt in to provide more information that are projects that are further along will be sent for the regional priority project list consideration. So we're going to describe more about all of that as we go along. So my job is to start talking about the CEDS, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. So a CEDS is strategy driven. It's a federal planning process for regional economic development. And so it's prescribed as a document that it will have certain elements. It has a strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, contains larger goals. And basically, it's a strategy for our region to be more economically resilient. So to build economic resilience, that means increase our ability to withstand shocks of any kind, whether those be economic, business, like a large employer leaving, whether those be related to climate, whether those be related to the need for more infrastructure, all those things basically help us become more resilient. In order to be designated as an economic development district, an EDD, by the Economic Development Authority of the United States, you do have to have one in place, and you have to fully update one every 5 years. And then we also provide yearly updates with projects that are in alignment with our economic future. So currently, the SoVermont Zone has a pending application to become an EDD, but we do have the CEDS in place, and we have recently just gotten the last update approved, so we are ready to go. So the CEDS contains a list of objectives and strategies that Jonathan is going to go through in a moment, and those were developed in a public process. So these are not just things we made up. These are things that were developed with a steering committee with stakeholders from across the region, a consultant, Camoin, who has helped us with both our SEDS developments and also with lots of public input. So from stakeholder interviews to stakeholder groups to wider public input into those goals and strategies. So this is really a public process that is not owned by any one entity, but is really owned by everybody who's taking part in doing projects. So each year we do update this with a list of regional projects that demonstrate how they help advance the plan's stated objectives. So we put out this call with our partners at BCRC yearly so that we can learn about new projects and also get updates from previously submitted projects. We are happy to get updates. More about that later if you submitted last year. So I think with that, I'm going to turn this over to Jonathan. We'll share the link, the document you can see here, the Southern Vermont SEDS, and that's available. We'll share the link at SoVermontZone.com. There's a button on the front page, but /SEDS gets you directly to this page where you can take a look at that document, read through it, and get to the meat of it, which is going to be the objectives and strategies that Jonathan is about to share. So Jonathan, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Meg. So one of the elements of a SEDS, sort of in getting a feel for what's going to be in it, is who are we, where do we want to go, and how are we going to get there? And the point and the purpose of these strategies is not to make everybody have to reorient to some new goals and to some new objectives, but rather to have objectives that both reflect where we are now, what we're doing now, and why we're doing it, where it's going to take us. So our first objective, we can pull that up, is to address these critical population needs we have now for the future. And so each of these strategies that you'll see is sort of tying back to how we would meet that objective. There's a variety, there's 3, 4, 5, et cetera, for each of these objectives. But as you're looking through these, we're thinking about projects that you have in mind, what you are working on. Projects don't have to meet all of them, but the point is to see, well, is what I'm doing tied to addressing that population need that we have as one of the oldest states in the union, as a region of the state that's even older, than that has a higher median age than Vermont as a total or as a whole. We want to make sure that we have community assets that are attractive to young people. We want to look for attraction efforts for people that have needed skills, fostering population growth and supporting policies that strengthen our care and education systems. So we're really dependent on our workforce, and we're absolutely dependent on the workforce that we have now and the workforce that we're going to need in the decades to come. Our second objective is to empower businesses to thrive long-term. So we're seeing another sort of time horizon framed objective here. We want to enhance the business potential for growth, strengthen our entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem. So we're both supporting our legacy employers and those economic impacts that we have yet to determine, those businesses that have yet to come to the forefront, to make sure that small business owners and entrepreneurs and sole proprietors have every opportunity to be a part of our economic future and our community's future. And finally, we want to establish that collaborative regional workforce development system. You may find that your projects are about that. It may be the case that you're working on something that's drawing in a number of different entities, not just your own. And so that could be something that you may not realize you're working on something collaborative and regional, but it may be the case that your projects, in fact, are. So our third objective is to foster resilient, adaptable communities. I think we've seen throughout the country and throughout Vermont over the years, the need for resilience of all kinds. So maybe that's infrastructure, that's hard infrastructure, that could be soft infrastructure, but we want to upgrade to adapt to those environmental impacts that we are experiencing and that we feel we may continue to experience. Increasing housing options for all incomes at all ages, improving our civic and community engagement, because when disaster strikes, resilience isn't just about how high the seawall is or how big the culvert is. It's about how the community can support each other through a crisis, from the time it begins to the time that it ends and the time that we have to recover. And then lastly, reinforcing recreation and cultural opportunities as an important element of resilience economically, resilience socially and culturally as well. Our fourth objective, the last one we have, is to promote regional economic development cooperation. And this isn't just the purview of regional development corporations or regional planning commissions. Creating and strengthening structures that support the SEDS implementation belongs to all of us, because it's about all of our actions that align with this SEDS, with the strategies within. It's about increasing access to industrial and commercial space, something that we have a limitation on. As you'll see around the region, some of our larger municipalities seem to have plenty, but once we get outside, even in those markets, they're approaching some saturation points. And so having more space to do more things is relevant to us. I believe that those are just the two strategies for objective 4. So now we can move on to one of those big picture questions that we like to address with this presentation every year. Why should I do this? What's the value of submitting my project to both the SEDS and or the regional priority project list? So in both instances, I've had the chance to talk to some of you on this in this webinar about this. This helps with visibility, helps the organization, and that can help with access. So this lets us communicate better with regional, state, and federal partners. This lets your project get onto radars that it may not currently be on. That can increase the access you may have to technical assistance, including some awareness of financial resources. I think we also can indicate to those federal agencies and other funders that your project is aligned with our SEDS, with this regional plan to grow the economy. And in some instances, that is a prerequisite. So you may see in some applications, does your region have a SEDS? Are you aligned with the SEDS? You want to be able to check as many yes boxes as you can, because each question that you may see in a funding application is relevant to the scoring of your application. So on its merits, and then alignment with the SEDS is considered something of merit to a project. In fact, you can see there, they might even be a requirement. And so lastly, this will help projects, organize some key information that you may need for future applications. This is really relevant, especially to those early stage applications, those projects that are kind of percolating right now. It can be really valuable to know the roles and to know your goals. So getting a sense of who's a part of this, what do we have for assets, how long have you been working together? It can be especially important for organizations, especially when you're looking in a consortium kind of application where you have a project that has a few different partners. You'll find that the SEDS project submission application is exceptionally useful to making sure that you have all of those sorts of questions answered, those responsibilities sort of understood, so everyone is pulling in the same direction. And that's something that we found organizations have said, that when they've gotten projects going at the early stages, this has been especially helpful for delineating who's doing what and why. So I think those are some of the reasons why we have these projects, but I know that we'll be turning it over now to Owen to talk about the subsequent slides. Meg, that was it, right?
Awesome. I'll talk a little bit about how the RPP list is different from the SEDS. First difference is the collection of it. So it's going to be 12 RDCs compiling different lists, coming up with a top 10 out of those, and then submitting them to the state, who will narrow those down more. Then we have, so it also requires projects to be aligned with the SEDS goals, but there's a little bit more to that as well. So in addition, there's going to need to be a little bit more project readiness. And in that, we're going to ask for some more material, such as job creation and wages for those jobs. This is also required for inclusion in the Northern Border application. So we have a little bit more here about the additional requirements that you'll need. You'll have to have numbers for job creation and retention, a more detailed budget, and funding for sources and uses. There's also some optional items here that are strongly encouraged to have a competitive application. That'd be proof of site control, if it's relevant, engineering and design plan, permitting, letters of commitment from funders or lenders, and project principal experience. Another difference here between how we're going to be handling it for Windham County and Bennington is that we're going to ask for these right away on the form, whereas they'll be able to reach out and ask for the additional information later.
Okay, so what is the deadline? The deadline is September 5th. Regardless of which process you're going for, please submit your project by September 5th. For the regional priority projects, the RPP, you do have an additional 2 weeks to upload that additional information that Owen was sharing. So for the RPP list, we are asking for more detailed information. They should be projects that are further along. So we need things like sources and uses and site plans, etc. So you have a little more time to submit that supplemental information after you submit your project on September 5th. So you can upload a placeholder or a draft if you don't have all the information you need for RPP consideration. The deadline is September 5th. I'm just gonna, that's the date to remember. Okay, so I am going to tell you a little more about the process. So there's 2 different committees. Actually, yeah, there's multiple committees. On Wyndham's side, we have Jonathan and I are organizing a by county CEDS project review list. We will look at projects from both counties. We're convening a committee of just community leaders from across Southern Vermont to rank those projects and select about 10 what we call vital projects to really highlight across the region. So Jonathan and I don't vote, we just facilitate. And then there is a separate regional priority projects committee for Windham County that's that Owen is facilitating, and there will be a separate selection process on Bennington County for regional priority projects as well. So there's a lot of pieces working together, but we're trying to simplify it by just giving you the one form. So if you submitted a project in 2024 or 2023, actually, you should have received your prior submission from me with a link to update that entry. And if you didn't, or if you lost the link or whatever, just reach out to me. So you don't have to start from scratch. You can just give us updates on what you've already submitted. That will make it easy. Okay, now I am going to show you how you actually get to these places. All right. So you want to go to SoVermontZone.com. Scroll on down to submit a project to the CEDS RPP list. There's a few more details here. You know, if there's a lot to remember. So here's some reminders. Here's the webinar you're on right now. Here's the button for the form.
I'm just going to jump in and say we'll post the recording of this webinar right in that spot where there's that button to register for the webinar. It will be replaced with here's how you get to the recording in case you would like to review this or share it with anyone else.
Great, thank you, Meg. So yeah, the beginning of this list is pretty straightforward. You want to put in the name of your project, which is something like, you know, trail building in wherever. This is not the place to give us like a philosophical approach to your project, like increasing the access to nature and outdoors, whatever. Just what is the project? What is the actual thing you're doing? If you are the, yeah, so then your information, what organization is doing the project. And if you are submitting this on behalf of an organization that has, you know, a CEO and you're not the CEO, then just like put that person's name there. So here's where it gets a little bit trickier is you want to say what region you are affecting. You know, if your project is just in Pownell, then, you know, a single town in Bennington County. But if your project is workforce development for both counties, then you're going to say it's all of Southern Vermont. So if you need help with that, let us know. And then this is what will change the options that you see. Do you want to have your project considered for inclusion in the annual RDC priority project list? That's the RPP list. So if you say no, then you have the more streamlined basic CEDS project submission form. This puts your project in the CEDS and it has your project for consideration for vital project selection. You'll give us some basic information, pretty short descriptions, why you're doing it, who's partnering with you, approximately where you are in the process. There are multiple places where you can either give us a description or you can upload. So if you already have this documentation for grant applications you're doing, for reporting you're doing, whatever, just go ahead and give us that. That's fine. You don't need to reinvent this documentation. And then, you know, Jonathan had walked you through what the SEDS objectives are. So just tell us what SEDS objectives your project addresses and how they do so. You don't need to stretch here, just the SEDS objectives that really make sense to you, even if it's only one, that's totally fine. Just addressing one objective really well, spot on, is great. So, let's see. Again, we want to know some project budgets. For the SEDS, it can be pretty simple. You're welcome to upload documents you already have. And anything else that you want to upload. Pictures are great. If you have other supporting documents like a business plan, feasibility study, anything else you think would help the SEDS Project Review Committee understand the project, it's great. Right, now let me show you how the form's a little different if you're in the Windham region and you do want to be considered for the Regional Priority Project RPP list. If you select yes, you do need to confirm that you have a detailed budget and sources and uses, and that will open up the rest of the form to which has a lot of the same information as the SEDS, but also asks you to upload site control, engineering, letters of commitment, milestones, just a lot more documentation because we're expecting that these projects are much further down the road than the SEDS projects. A lot of this kind of documentation will be needed for RPP for Bennington County, but you will submit that later. Jonathan will reach out to you to get that later. If you select Bennington County RPP, then the form is still the basic SEDS form. All right, Meg, what did I leave out?
Well, if from Bennington County, it'll be the basic SEDS form plus some questions about job retention, those sort of really basic questions. And then in terms of documentation, you'll get an email from Jonathan asking for any other further documentation that they might need for your project. I think that's it. So I'm going to just now, I think that's, we're gonna, in a second, turn it over to questions. I'm just gonna show you, okay, hopefully you're now seeing contacts for questions. I'm going to send the recording out to everyone, as well as this slide deck with live links and the people to reach out to. So if you have questions, Rachel has helped design this form. And so if you have questions about SEDS project submission, feel free to reach out to Rachel because she'll be able to sort of help you with any, especially like back-end questions, and or if she wants to if you're in Bennington County and she wants to refer you to Jonathan, she can do that. So she's sort of just the intake person for questions for the SEDS for the RPP project submission in the Windham region. So that includes all of Windham County plus Reedsboro, Searsburg, Whitehall, and Weston. You can reach out to both Owen, who just spoke, who has also helped develop the form. So he's a really good person for any technical assistance. But also Al Clausen, who's our real estate director. If you email propertymanager@brattleborodevelopment.com, that'll get to both Owen and Al, and they can help you just route your question and get that answered for you. In Bennington County, you can reach out, for either the SEDS, if it's a project-related question, not a technical question, or an RPP question, feel free to reach out to Jonathan. And, actually any of these people will be able to route you to the right person if they're not it. So these are contacts that you can use. So I am now going to stop the share and we have some time for questions. So
and CJ had a comment as somebody who's been through this process a few times.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody can hear me now, I guess. Rachel and Meg and Jonathan have been, and everybody's been so fantastic. If you're brand new to this, I remember that. And it might seem like this is all really complicated and what are these two different processes? and we're all busy, and what's the value of this? I'm the grant writer for Grace Cottage, and I think when I was new to this, I don't know, half a dozen years ago, I'm like, but there's no money involved. So do I want to go through this long form and provide all this information? And I have learned since then that this is of huge value in terms of information and resources and connections and status for your project. So we have been a vitality project for a number of years, working on a primary care clinic building. And we also then applied for the regional priority project status. Again, not completely understanding how much it would help. And I learned that they were steering me exactly in the right way, because when we applied to the Northern Border Regional Commission for a big grant for our project, what do you know? The place we were on the regional priority project list gave us points, which helped increase our grant score. So I know this might seem complicated and a lot of stuff to do, but all of these folks are super helpful and supportive, and every year I'm more grateful for everything you guys do for us to help us as business communities. So I just wanted to say that's my testimonial, that it's worth the effort to do this by what you learn, by the resources you connect to, and by, getting on the regional, even the vitality list. I'm saying that wrong, the vital project list. All these things just connect you into ideas and resources. So I just say, go for it, take the time. And it helps you think through your project and prepare the paragraphs you might need later on for a grant application too. You've already got some of that stuff written. So I just wanted to say it's really worth it. I'm here just to see what's different this year and to make sure that I do a good job, doing an update to my project. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, CJ. And that's a good question. What's different this year? Not too much. The SEDS objectives are a little bit different. So that will be the place where if you submitted before, your answers may not be there or may need to be adjusted. Obviously we also want updates on the progress on your project, but all other things being the same, it'll be the SEDS objectives. Jonathan, I see a question for you in the chat. I think this will be good for you. Giovanna asks, since the SEDS is in historic alignment with the federal government, can you speak to how current changes at the federal level might impact these initiatives?
So thank you very much, Rachel. I think the best way to put it is that the current SEDS that we have, that this project submission process is tied to, is very freshly approved by the EDA under the current administration. So it is, and that was a bit of a process. We had more feedback this time around than we've had in years past. And so we made sure that we had a document, a strategy that reflects where we are as a region and where we are as a federal administration. And so we're glad to say that the EDA's Northern New England representative, Catherine Trapani, was sort of the point person for that shuttle communication, is fully on board with how we've articulated things and what we're trying to do. I hope, Giovanna, that answers your question. It may not, and if not, I look to other colleagues to share their thoughts.
Well, I would just say too, if you have any questions as you're submitting your project about maybe language you're using, please do feel free to reach out and we can guide you to language that we have incorporated into the SEDS, that, as we say, that's sort of the approved language. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about phrasing things, or just, you feel like, is this the way that I should say this? And we can definitely point you to where in the SEDS there's language that you can kind of learn from, or, align with, basically. And so if the language you're using in your project submission is in alignment with the language that's in the SEDS, that will be terrific. But also, please do feel free at any time to reach out if you have any questions or want clarity or need, us to guide you to things. So terrific.
All right, Mike, what's on your mind?
Well, thanks. This is my first shot into it. I'm a maiden voyage into grant writing. So a couple of overall higher level questions. From the discussion thus far, there was a mention of points. There was a dozen, a list of a dozen that's going to be assembled. So do I understand correctly that the application actually is rated, and that in that rating process, you could end up in this list of a dozen projects and then receive some sort of funding based on that? And that if you don't end up in that top 12 list, there's not going to be any funding coming our way?
Well, good question. There's a couple different things playing into that. Your projects will be ranked. The SEDS projects are ranked. We pull a committee from both counties, Bennington and Windham County, and we choose about 10 projects to say these are vital projects for Southern Vermont. There's no direct funding from that, although we have seen projects that has unlocked some funding for. It's great to be able to put in your grant applications. It helps connect you with resources and raises your project's profile so that people know what you're working on. There's also the RPP list, the regional priority projects, where, Mike, where are you? Where is your project?
I'm in East Dorset,
Okay.
in Bennington County.
Okay, great. So if you choose to submit all the documentation, if you choose to want to be considered for the regional priority projects list, that's for something that's a little bit further on. Usually you'd be working with Jonathan on that, and feel free to reach out to him and say, should I submit? Is this worth it? And he can look at your specifics. If your project is selected by a different committee for the regional priority projects list, that can give you more points for federal funding applications, such as with Northern Border Regional Commission. So that's where the funding would come from.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Really grateful to have caught this just in time. I just found out about it an hour or so ago.
Oh, wow. That's great. Well, yes, we're all happy to help. And it's there's a lot of things going on, so it's totally fine to need more clarity. So please feel free to keep asking. What else? What other questions do folks have? Gary. Gary, we cannot hear you. No, you're not muted, but it doesn't seem like your microphone is working. I don't hear you. Do you want to just put your question in the chat, maybe? And while Gary's typing,
does this
oh, there you are.
this working?
Yay. Yes, yes.
So over time, the town of Rockingham and a couple of local development corporations in the town have submitted a number of different projects. And so as we know, projects can last generally 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes 10 years or more. And so initially, first round of projects, I don't know, maybe 2015 or some such thing. And so then one of the projects, a lot of those projects are in an area that needs them, abandoned, underutilized post-industrial paper mill area. And so there's a couple of years ago, the town did an area-wide plan, which describes the redevelopment of, since most of the pretty much every project being developed in Bellows Falls, if it breaks ground, if there's any ground disturbance, involves contamination and cleanup. And so there's probably 6 different projects that we have said submissions for that could all come under the area-wide plan, which when that was done, we did submit that as a project. Does it make sense to just note in the individual projects, please see area-wide plan and submit them all as part of the area-wide plan? Or does it make sense to keep them all as separate submissions? They are all on, varying timelines.
I would say if there's anything that you want that's far enough along for RPP consideration, you'll definitely want to submit that separately. I think for early stage projects, it could make sense to group them as, area-wide plan projects if they're still sort of in the conceptual or early planning stages. But if they're further along than that, I think it's helpful for the ranking committee to have them broken out.
And I just wanted to bring up a question that Eileen asked earlier is, can you submit more than one project, which sort of speaks to what Gary was just saying about. And it's, of course, especially entities like a town may have more than one project or a larger organization. And of course, it's fine to have more than one project submitted. So we look at it as a project by project basis, not a submitter by submitter basis, if that makes sense. So there certainly are, regional organizations or towns that may have more than one project in process, and it's perfectly fine to submit more than one project. And if you, again, have any questions, you can feel free to reach out, but we really look at them on a by project basis, not a by submitter basis, as long as there's a clear contact, ownership, a person that we can get back to on the other end of the line, and that it's, clearly defined, you can submit more than one project. Okay, we're going to wrap up pretty soon, but I'm happy to take more questions. Eileen, go ahead. Yeah.
We have a project. It's called phase 2 of a wastewater project. And I'm having maybe this is more something offline. I'm having trouble wording the project because it's based off of phase 1. It's not really a separate project. It's phase 2 because we don't have the funding for it yet, basically. There's a small funding gap. How do I handle that? Do I truly make it a separate project, or is it okay for me to reference the original project?
Well, it's the same project, you're just farther along, right?
Well, it was originally separated out into 2 projects, phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay.
Phase 1 is coming along. We have connection applications, and it's being put out to bid this fall. So it's definitely happening. And the phase 2 piece is really just to create more capacity. And the only reason it's broken out is because we don't have the funding for it yet. The designs are all the designs are in place as far as I know. It's just the funding.
So I would say in that case, and we could also potentially take this offline, but it does seem like you probably would submit phase 2 maybe separately. And we've seen this, for example, in Bennington County with the Putnam Block redevelopment, which was undertaken in several phases. I'm not sure if your project aligns sort of with that, but that project, certainly we have seen projects come through in submission with, update to phase 1, we've got our funding, RFPs are going out, we're going to break ground, so you can update phase 1 with the progress on that. And then phase 2 is sort of like, this is, once we're done with all that, we're trying to go to this next step. So it's perfectly fine to submit phase 2 as a discrete project, particularly if that's going to be how you're going to be seeking funding and what you would put on grant applications. So I think it sounds like that, but we can also more than happy to take a call and just kind of work through it with you. And you can always attach a PDF of phase 1 as part of your project submission in phase 2, if that makes sense. So that can be sort of like, just so they kind of stay together. You can always do that as just sort of as your updated documentation. That's perfectly fine too, just to be like, for context, here's where we're starting from, so you don't have to rewrite everything. But we have certainly seen projects come through with phase 1 and then phase 2 as they develop. So happy to talk through that, but it sounds like that is well within, what has happened in the past and what we've seen and projects that we have reviewed.
Okay. I inherited the project list, so I'm not, I don't think we even submitted phase 1 as a project, so.
Yeah, we're happy to take a look at it. So
Yeah.
you could do both, or not necessarily, you don't have to. If it's already moving along and it's happening, you could just, attach any of those documents
Okay.
as context, and just simply put in phase 2 and just mention that phase 1 is attached separately. So you can, maybe make up a document that's like, here's where we are. Any project scope that you have, you can include in your submission, and perfectly fine to just submit phase 2.
Okay.
As long as you kind of give enough context that people won't feel like they're coming in the middle. And there's ways to do that. So I'm more than happy to talk you through.
Okay. Well, we'll talk offline then. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds great. That sounds doable. Any other questions that people might have before we go? And also, again, feel free. We'll send out all the contact information. So direct questions are always welcome. Any other questions while we have you in person, so to speak? Okay, I feel like I'm at that meeting place where you say, hearing none, we will finish this webinar. We thank you all for attending. We thank you for all the work you do with your projects. We welcome questions. CJ, thank you for your testimonial. Thank you, everyone who asked good questions. That helps everyone. And we are here to help and to look forward to seeing the projects.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much.